Captain Arden Reeve stood quietly inside the huge metal belly of the UNS Black Horizon, feeling the steady hum of the ship around him. He was surrounded by thousands of people, soldiers, scientists, engineers, all ready for one purpose: to claim Natera, the beautiful world that the galaxy had said humans could never have. The journey had been long and dangerous, but now they were finally there, just above the bright green planet. Reeve's eyes scanned the view screen showing the forests and seas below, untouched and glowing under the sunlight. The air outside seemed calm, almost inviting, so different from the wild, stormy skies of Earth. The men and women gathered with him carried the weight of their world's history on their shoulders. They had heard the laughter of the Galactic Council and the sneers from alien leaders. They knew Earth was called a Deathworld, harsh and dangerous, but they were proud of where they came from. Captain Reeve's voice was firm as he spoke to his crew. He said they had been mocked and underestimated for too long. Now it was their time to show the galaxy what humans were made of. They prepared the drop pods, small capsules designed to carry soldiers quickly and safely from orbit to the planet's surface. One by one, the pods fired, streaking through the sky like shooting stars, landing in the dense jungles and wide plains of Natera. As the pods hit the ground, soldiers sprang out, alert and ready. They began setting up small bases and scouting the area. The planet was wild, but in a peaceful way, not full of deadly storms or monsters, but alive with strange plants and quiet animals. The air was fresh, the soil rich. It was a paradise compared to Earth, but the humans never let their guard down. This was not just a new home, it was a challenge. They had to be ready for anything. Days passed, and the outposts grew. Humans explored rivers, climbed hills, and learned how to live with Natera's life. But they were not alone. The native Zayari watched silently from their high cities and crystal forests. These beings, graceful and powerful, considered Natera their sacred home and saw humans as invaders. On the 5th day after landing, the skies suddenly darkened as Zayari warbirds appeared, fast and deadly, swooping down with bright energy weapons. Their arrival was not peaceful. The first battle began without warning. Humans fought back with everything they had, their guns blazing, their tactics sharp. The sound of explosions echoed through the valley as two very different worlds clashed, over a paradise that neither wanted to give up. It was clear that this fight was more than just for land. It was about survival, pride, and respect. And somewhere deep in the forest, the planet itself seemed to pulse with energy, as if sensing the importance of what was happening. The battle on Natera was just beginning, and it would change everything, for humans, for the Zayari, and for the future of the galaxy. The fierce clash between humans and the Zayari on Natera's surface quickly grew more intense. Captain Arden Reeve and his team found themselves fighting in thick jungles filled with towering trees and strange glowing plants. The Zayari were skilled warriors, moving swiftly and striking with precision using their energy blades and advanced technology. But the humans had something the Zayari did not: experience surviving impossible conditions back on Earth. The Deathworld had trained them to face dangers head-on, to adapt quickly and to use every part of their environment to their advantage. As the Zayari pressed their attack, humans used guerrilla tactics, hiding among the trees, setting traps, and attacking in quick bursts before disappearing into the dense forest. Reeve watched as his soldiers grew stronger and more confident with each skirmish. The Zayari underestimated them, thinking humans were weak and crude, but the opposite was true. The humans' toughness, their ability to endure pain and keep fighting, began to turn the tide. But the battle was not only fought with weapons. The jungle itself seemed alive, almost reacting to the conflict. Strange storms would suddenly form, lightning crackling above as if the planet was warning both sides to stop. Yet neither would listen. Reeve felt the weight of the mission on his shoulders. Every decision he made affected hundreds of lives and the future of his people. He saw in his troops the same fierce determination he felt inside, a refusal to back down or give up. While the soldiers fought, the scientists aboard the Black Horizon worked tirelessly to understand Natera's unique environment. They discovered that the planet's life was connected by an energy network beneath the soil, something like a nervous system for the entire world. This energy seemed to respond to the emotions and actions of the creatures living on the surface. When battles raged, the energy pulsed strongly, sometimes aiding the defenders, sometimes creating dangerous conditions like sudden storms or wildfires. This discovery explained why the planet felt so alive and unpredictable. The humans realized they had to respect this force if they wanted to survive and succeed. Reeve called for a meeting with his top officers. They knew they couldn't just rely on brute strength. They needed a plan that used both their toughness and their new understanding of Natera. They decided to send teams deeper into the jungle to learn how to communicate with the planet's energy, hoping to find a way to calm the fighting and show the Zayari they were not there to destroy, but to coexist. Meanwhile, the Zayari leaders grew uneasy. They had expected an easy victory over the humans, but the Deathworld survivors were proving harder to defeat. Some of their commanders began to question their own people's old ways and wondered if peace was possible with these strange, stubborn invaders. But the hardliners pushed for more attacks, fearing that any sign of weakness would mean losing their sacred home forever. As the conflict escalated, Captain Reeve faced not only enemies in the forest, but also doubts among his own crew. Some soldiers were scared, tired from constant fighting and unsure if they could win against a race so tied to their planet. But Reeve stood firm, reminding them of Earth's harsh past and the strength it gave them. He inspired them to push forward, to fight not just for land, but for respect, survival, and the right to build a future on Natera. The jungle battles, the storms, and the energy beneath their feet all combined into a fierce test for humanity's spirit. This was more than a war over a planet. It was a fight to prove that Earth's Deathworld survivors could thrive anywhere, even in a paradise they were told they didn't deserve. Captain Arden Reeve stood on the observation deck of the UNS Black Horizon, staring at the beautiful world of Natera below. The endless green forests, sparkling rivers, and towering mountains seemed peaceful, but the battle raging across the planet's surface was anything but. After weeks of fierce fighting with the Zayari, things had reached a dangerous point. The humans had shown their strength and cleverness, adapting quickly to the strange new world and surviving its wild nature. But the Zayari were relentless defenders of their home, using every advantage their knowledge of the planet gave them. Reeve knew this fight could not be won by force alone. Meanwhile, tensions grew in the Galactic Council chambers. Reports of the fierce conflict on Natera had reached the farthest stars, and many worlds were watching closely. Some council members began to worry that the war between humans and Zayari could spark a larger galaxy-wide conflict. Others believed that Earth's stubbornness was a threat that needed to be controlled before it spread. Back on Natera, Reeve and his team had been working closely with the scientists to understand the planet's strange energy system. They learned that Natera's life was deeply connected, almost like one living being, and the energy beneath. The soil could be influenced by emotions and actions of its inhabitants. Using this knowledge, the humans tried something new. Instead of attacking, they sent small groups to areas of the jungle where the energy was strongest to meditate and try to connect with the planet. These moments were strange and peaceful, a sharp contrast to the violence around them. Some soldiers felt calm, almost like the planet was responding to their will. Slowly, small changes began to happen. The storms lessened, animals moved cautiously, closer, and some Zayari warriors began to hesitate in their attacks. But not everyone on either side wanted peace. A powerful Zayari warlord named Threxar saw the humans' attempt to connect with Natera's energy as a sign of weakness. He rallied the hardliners, urging them to crush the invaders before they grew stronger. Threxar led surprise attacks that caught human patrols off guard, forcing Reeve and his soldiers back into constant battle. The fighting grew more brutal, and the jungle's energy pulsed with fury, creating dangerous storms and shifting terrain. Yet even in the darkest moments, Reeve never lost hope. He understood that winning this war would take more than weapons. It required respect and understanding. One night, after a fierce battle, Reeve found himself alone in the jungle, surrounded by strange, glowing plants that pulsed with light. He sat quietly, trying to feel the planet's energy. For the first time, he sensed something beyond anger or fear, a deep, ancient power that connected everything. This moment changed him. Reeve realized that humans could survive here not by conquering Natera, but by becoming part of it. He shared this insight with his officers, pushing them to find ways to protect the planet even as they defended themselves from attacks. This new approach was risky and met with skepticism, but it gave the humans a new strength. As the war continued, the balance shifted. Some Zayari began to see that the humans were not just invaders, but survivors with a strange connection to the planet's wild nature. Others held tightly to their hatred and fear, preparing for one final, desperate battle. The stage was set for a showdown that would decide not only who controlled Natera, but what kind of future awaited both species. The Paradise World was no longer just a prize. It was a test of survival will and the power to change old beliefs. Captain Reeve knew that the coming days would demand everything from him and his people, but he also knew that humanity's greatest strength was their ability to fight through impossible odds and find hope in the darkest places. The war on Natera grew more dangerous as both humans and Zayari faced losses that shook their spirits. Captain Arden Reeve could see the toll the fighting was taking on his people. The jungle, once full of strange but peaceful life, now echoed with the sounds of battle, gunfire, explosions, and cries of pain. The humans had learned much about the planet's energy and its connection to life, but the Zayari were experts of their world, using its secrets to launch powerful attacks. One day, a sudden and massive storm struck the human base, uprooting trees and flooding camps. The storm wasn't natural. It was a force born from the planet's own power, responding to the deep anger and fear between the two species. Reeve and his team had to work quickly to protect their people and salvage what they could. In the chaos, a small group of soldiers discovered an ancient Zayari ruin hidden deep in the jungle. The ruins were filled with symbols and technology that hinted at the planet's long history and its connection to the energy beneath the soil. Among the ruins was a crystal pulsing with a soft blue light, clearly a source of great power. Scientists aboard the Black Horizon realized this crystal could be the key to controlling Natera's energy. Reeve faced a hard choice. Use the crystal to gain an advantage in battle or find a way to heal the planet's wounds and end the war. Trust was fragile, but Reeve sent envoys to the Zayari leaders, proposing a meeting to discuss peace and the future of Natera. The envoys risked their lives traveling through dangerous territory, but some Zayari were curious and willing to listen. At the meeting, held in the ruins beneath towering trees, both sides shared their fears and hopes. The humans spoke of Earth's harsh past and their desire to find a new home, while the Zayari spoke of their love for the planet and their fear of losing it forever. The crystal pulsed as if listening, connecting the two groups in a strange way. But peace was fragile. Threxar, the Zayari warlord, refused to accept compromise. He launched a surprise attack during the meeting, scattering both sides and nearly destroying the fragile trust. The battle was fierce, with soldiers fighting side by side against common enemies. Reeve fought through the chaos, risking everything to protect the crystal. The destruction caused by the fighting awakened something deeper within the planet. The ground trembled, plants twisted, and strange creatures emerged from the jungle, driven wild by the energy unleashed. Both humans and Zayari realized they faced a threat greater than their war, a force from Natera itself that could destroy them all if they didn't stop fighting. In the aftermath, Reeve made a bold decision. He reached out again to the Zayari leaders who wanted peace and suggested a united effort to calm the planet's fury. Humans and Zayari worked together, using the crystal's energy and their combined knowledge to restore balance. This cooperation began to heal the jungle and quiet the storms. The partnership was uneasy but powerful. It showed that survival depended on trust, respect, and unity. Captain Arden Reeve stood among the restored trees, feeling the pulse of Natera's energy slow to a gentle beat. The war had not ended, but a new path was opening, one where humans and Zayari might share the paradise world. The struggle had changed them both, proving that even in the darkest battles, hope could grow. And for the first time, the humans truly believed they could make Natera their new home, not as conquerors but as protectors of a world once called a paradise beyond reach. The uneasy alliance between humans and the Zayari began to reshape the battle-scarred landscape of Natera. Captain Arden Reeve could see hope flickering where there had been only fire and destruction. The combined efforts of both species to calm the planet's raging energy slowly brought peace to the once turbulent jungles. The crystal's light pulsed steadily, a quiet heartbeat connecting them all, and the wild storms that had threatened to tear the world apart grew less fierce. Yet, despite the growing cooperation, the shadow of war still lingered. Threxar, the Zayari warlord, had retreated deep into the uncharted wilds, gathering followers who refused to accept peace or the humans' presence. These zealots launched guerrilla attacks against human patrols and even against their own people who sought harmony. The fragile alliance was tested by fear and betrayal, and Reeve found himself balancing on a knife's edge between hope and despair. Amid the rebuilding efforts, a new threat emerged. Strange alien ships appeared in orbit, massive, dark, and unlike anything the humans or Zayari had seen before. These newcomers were called the Draxil, a ruthless species known for conquering worlds and stripping them of resources without mercy. Their arrival changed everything. Neither humans nor Zayari could ignore the danger now looming over Natera. The Draxil demanded control of the planet, seeing it as a prize ripe for the taking. Captain Reeve quickly called an emergency meeting with Zayari leaders. They agreed that their old quarrels must be set aside to face this new enemy. Together, they began to prepare defenses, sharing technology and tactics in a way that would have been unthinkable just weeks before. Reeve coordinated human fleets in orbit, while Zayari ground forces trained side by side with human soldiers. The jungle, once a battlefield between friends and foes, became a place of unity and preparation. The soldiers worked tirelessly, understanding that this fight was for the survival of their new home and everything they had fought to build. Reeve's own team ventured deep into the jungle once more, searching for more ruins or relics that might help in the coming war. They found ancient weapons and strange devices left by a civilization long gone, technology that seemed to resonate with Natera's energy. Integrating these discoveries into their defense plans, the humans felt a renewed sense of purpose. The day of the first battle with the Draxil fleet arrived with a sky heavy and dark. The Draxil warships advanced, their weapons cutting through space like deadly claws. But the combined human-Zayari forces met them with fierce resistance. The battle was brutal and chaotic, with massive explosions lighting up the void. Captain Reeve piloted his flagship, Black Horizon, at the forefront, rallying his crew and coordinating attacks. The Zayari warriors fought with the fierce passion of those defending their home, while human pilots used every trick from their Deathworld training to outmaneuver the enemy. The clash lasted for hours, neither side willing to give ground. On the surface, the jungle trembled as energy surged, reacting to the conflict above. Reeve realized that the planet itself was joining the fight, its power awakening in defense of those who had learned to respect it. In a daring move, Reeve led a strike team to the heart of the jungle to activate an ancient defense system hidden within the ruins. As they navigated traps and hostile wildlife, the tension rose. If they failed, Natera could fall to the Draxil, but success meant turning the planet's hidden power against the invaders. When the system activated, massive energy beams shot into space, striking the Draxil ships and turning the tide of battle. The invaders, shocked and battered, began to retreat. The victory was hard-won and costly, but it proved that together, humans and Zayari could defend their home. As the dust settled, Reeve looked around at the faces of his allies, humans and Zayari alike, and felt a deep pride. They had fought their greatest enemy yet and survived. But he also knew this was only the beginning. The Draxil would return, stronger and more determined. Still the alliance held, forged in fire and hope. Natera was no longer a battlefield of hatred, but a symbol of unity and strength. Humanity had not just survived the Deathworld, they had made a paradise theirs, standing side by side with an alien race once thought impossible to trust. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Together, they would fight for it. The victory against the Draxil fleet brought a brief moment of calm, But Captain Arden Reeve knew the war was far from over. The Draxel had retreated, but their threat hung like a dark cloud over Natera. The alliance between humans and Zayari had grown stronger, but it was still fragile, tested by wounds old and new. Reeve stood on the bridge of the black horizon, looking out at the green jungles that stretched beyond the horizon. Below, both human and Zayari forces worked side by side, repairing battle damage and strengthening defenses. The planet itself seemed to breathe a little easier after the recent battles, but the scars remained. As Reeve planned their next moves, intelligence reports warned of a massive Draxil armada heading back toward Natera, larger and more deadly than before. The news sparked a sense of urgency and dread among the defenders. The coming battle would decide the fate of the planet and its new inhabitants. To face this threat, Reeve and the Zayari leaders decided to unite not only their armies but also their cultures. Training camps were set up where human soldiers learned Zayari combat techniques, and Zayari warriors studied human technology and strategy. This blending of strengths created a powerful force unlike any other. Meanwhile, Reeve's trusted team discovered another ancient ruin, deeper and older than the others. Inside, they found technology that could amplify Natera's natural energy fields, potentially turning the entire planet into a weapon against the invading fleet. But activating this technology came with great risks. If misused, it could destroy the planet they were fighting to save. After long debate and with no better choice, the leaders agreed to prepare the device as a last resort weapon. The days before the battle were filled with tension and preparation. Families, human and Zayari alike, shared stories and hopes for a peaceful future, even as warships gathered in orbit and troops readied for combat. Reeve found himself reflecting on the journey from war to fragile peace, and now to the brink of annihilation. The night before the battle, under the twin moons of Natera, he walked through a quiet camp. Soldiers huddled around fires, some nervous, others determined. He spoke with a young Zayari pilot named Kale, whose fierce loyalty reminded him of what was at stake. They shared a simple promise to protect their home and each other no matter the cost. When the massive Draxil armada appeared in the sky, the defenders were ready. The battle was unlike any before. Ships clashed in swirling. Chaos energy blasts lit the void, and the jungle below trembled with the force of the fight. Reeve commanded the black horizon through the heart of the conflict, coordinating attacks and inspiring his crews to push beyond their limits. The Zayari fought fiercely alongside humans, their combined tactics and fierce spirit turning the tide, again and again. As the fight raged on, Reeve's team raced to activate the ancient planetary weapon. They navigated the ruins, facing traps and wild creatures disturbed by the chaos. With moments to spare, they unleashed a pulse of energy, so powerful it shook the planet and lit the sky. The Draxil ships were caught in the blast, many crippled or destroyed, but the weapon's power also caused the ground to quake violently, threatening the lives of everyone on Natera. The defenders faced a terrible choice: use the weapon and risk their home, or fight on with fewer advantages. Reeve made the call to trust the weapon, believing in the strength of their unity and courage. The blast forced the Draxil fleet to retreat once more, staggering but not defeated. The victory came at a cost. Part of the jungle was destroyed and lives were lost, but hope burned brighter than ever. As silence fell, Reeve looked out at the stars, knowing that their fight for Natera was far from finished. Yet, humanity and the Zayari had shown that they could stand together against any threat. The Paradise Planet was no longer just a dream or a battleground. It was a home worth fighting for, a symbol of what could be achieved when different worlds joined as one. The final battle for Natera loomed like a storm on the horizon, more brutal and desperate than anything before. Captain Arden Reeve stood among his closest allies, both human and Zayari, feeling the weight of all they had fought for. The planets, jungles scarred but still alive, seemed to hold their breath as fleets gathered in orbit and soldiers prepared on the ground. The Draxil were returning with everything they had: vast numbers of warships, deadly new weapons, and a hunger to claim Natera at any cost. This was the moment that would decide the fate of not just a planet, but two species who had learned to trust each other. Reeves' mind raced as he coordinated strategies with Zayari commanders. Every ship, every soldier, every piece of ancient technology they had uncovered would be pushed to the limit. The unity forged through blood and hardship was their greatest weapon, but the stakes were higher than ever. The battle erupted with terrifying intensity. Space was torn apart by fire and metal as the two sides clashed in a deadly dance. Black Horizon weaved through enemy lines, Reeve barking orders and inspiring his crew to fight with every ounce of strength they had. On the ground, Zayari and humans fought side by side against Draxil forces attempting to invade the planet's surface. The jungle was alive with energy, the ancient crystals glowing fiercely as if responding to the courage of those defending their home. Despite their bravery, losses mounted on both sides, and the fighting grew more desperate. In the midst of chaos, Reeve led a small strike team deep into the enemy fleet's command ship. Their mission was clear but deadly: to disable the Draxil flagship and turn the tide of battle. They fought through tight corridors and fierce guards, relying on skill, courage, and trust in one another. Finally reaching the core, they planted explosives and prepared to escape as the ship began to collapse around them. The blast crippled the Draxil command ship, sowing confusion and panic among their forces. But victory still hung by a thread. The planetary weapon, weakened by earlier use, was faltering, and the jungle's energy was fading. Reeve realized that to save Natera, a sacrifice was needed. With no hesitation, he volunteered to pilot a small craft loaded with the last reserves of the ancient power straight into the heart of the enemy fleet. His crew begged him to reconsider, but Reeves' resolve was unshakable. As he launched into the storm of warships, he sent one final message to both humans and Zayari. For our home, for our future. The ship blazed through the darkness, a comet of hope and defiance. The explosion that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. An immense burst of energy that shattered enemy ships and pushed the Draxil into full retreat. The cost was high. Reeves' sacrifice saved Natera but left a deep scar in the hearts of those who knew him. In the quiet that followed, the survivors gathered among the ruins and the healing jungle. They mourned their losses, but celebrated their survival, knowing that they had forged a new future together. Humans and Zayari stood united, no longer just allies but true partners in the story of a Deathworld turned paradise. The galaxy had once laughed at Earth's Deathworld reputation and sneered at humanity's struggle. But now their paradise was a beacon of strength and hope. The story of Natera became a legend, a testament to resilience, courage, and the unbreakable spirit of those who refused to be defeated. As the sun rose over the recovering jungles, the promise of a new era glowed bright, shining a light across the stars for all to see.